this painting that we're doing, what we're wanting to accomplish here is a sense of beautiful light up in these trees, contrasted with some of the darks that happen below, and then the feeling of sunlight running down through here. So I'm at a point where I'm almost ready to pick up my masking fluid, but I want to be sure that I've done everything that I need to around the masking fluid before it comes off. So I'm sort of looking at it thinking, now what do I need to actually do here? What's going to improve this? Do I want that little piece of blue there? I think I want this darker between their legs. That needs to go darker there. And over on this tree over here, I perhaps can go a little darker, or maybe some more green in there to bring that out just a little bit. So let's go ahead and dive in with those things. And I see I almost got ready, but I didn't get brushes over here. So this is, let's start with over in here, a little bit more green. I've got this beautiful light leaf green, and if I put it in on top of that blue, I think it may end up being a really pretty color in there. And I'm just sort of, rather than doing it with the sponge, I'm doing it with my brush very lightly, and I think that's going to be lovely. And then maybe bring a little bit more of that green over to find its way in among some of these trees over here. And what about in this far side over here? I think we could handle a little bit of green in among those trees. And maybe down below, maybe not. Okay, so that's that much. Now, to go a little bit darker underneath of those figures, and that can go almost black. Boy, let's ultramarine blue. No, this isn't ultramarine blue that I've got here. This is Indanthrone blue. It's even darker. It's a little bit of a purpley blue, and yeah, let's put a little burnt sienna into it to darken it down. I've got a dark green in here. Let's try some of that. No, I want to shift from that dark green. And where's my sunlight? Sunlight is right here. And then it veers off and goes off this way. And I'm going to leave a little bit of a light patch back in there. And then maybe this is going to get just a little darkness in among these trees over here. And maybe some of this is a little darker than what I've got. It's going to be very difficult to, very difficult. I'm going to have to paint in very carefully around this if I want to add darks later. So this is really a nice time to make sure I've got the darks in that I need. And okay, yeah, it can be all the way around their shoulders. And then let's, my photograph, of course, didn't have everything in it that we're going to have here, but let's just run this. That shadow can come in dark and across there a little further, dark and across there. And you know, when we get this a little darker, boy, that really helps bring those in. And then this tree is going to go darker, remember. And maybe just see what he's doing before I pull things off. So he's going to become dark. And I want to add a little more brown to my brush. This is also allowing some of those other places to dry a little bit, so maybe I will or will not need to use the hair dryer. I need to be sure that the branch structure can hold the weight of the bottom of the branch, can hold the weight of the structure that I have up above. And I like that end of the blue. That was beautiful. Now let's add a little more brown to it, because I want to intensify some of this shadow work. This tree is coming a bit darker. Now as these branches get up in here further, I'm actually seeing that they get a little sunlight on them. So let's not have that totally dark. And we can do the branch that's behind there. And then I'm going to make that slightly darker back behind that, but I need to soften the edge of it. Maybe this tree trunk, it's not as dark when it gets down in here further. And then we have another dark tree back here. All right, so that's starting to show what's going to happen here. The other place that I played with just a little bit while we're letting that stuff dry is that I came in with my stencil and some magic eraser and picked up some design work up in these leaves, and I did some, but I want to do just a little bit more up here, but have to be careful that I only do it in this part of the stencil, because it's easy to sort of go a little beyond what you thought you were going to do. And yeah, I think that's going to work. I have to be careful. Let me just do a little tiny bit more here and overlap this just a bit on this side and see if I can keep my lifting tool in a smaller space. Yeah, that works a little bit better. Now I'm going to come back in on top of that with some orange, and the orange that we had been using was my quinacridone burnt orange. So let's just, oh yes, put a little bit of this in here. And that's going to make that a little stronger feeling, and those lights should come back through. Burnt orange, and then let's work this darker part of this just a little bit more. Just doing it with the tip of my brush rather than coming back in with the sponge. You can do both, you know, both are going to show. And then let's see if we can get a little bit of blue working up here. I got those too dark. I lifted out too much. It's one of these things that, you know, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I'm winning, sometimes I feel like I'm losing with it. But let's just do a little bit more of this orange up in here. It just felt like it needed a little more liveliness, which meant a little more intense color, but I don't want to lose that light area up at the very top of that. And I'm careful with what I do with my brush marks there. Okay, I think we're going to leave that part alone. I did do a little bit of lifting to get a little lighter here and a little bit lighter there, and I'm going to leave those the way they are because I like that. It was the lightness that I was saving there was great. And let's see, we have one other little place, the blue. Let's see if we can just do a little more blue around that edge to get that working a little better. And a little more blue on top of what I did. Okay, you liking that better? Leave it alone. Leave it alone. And this tree right here, I think it too could use just a little bit more of this burnt, yes. Let me see if I can smudge that around with my, no, it's not gonna do that. Sometimes I like something I did and sometimes I don't. Let me just see if I can get some of this on my sponge. And, yeah, that looks better. That needed just, and I don't want to lose the lights in there, which is very easy to do. And let's bring a little more of it down in there. Okay. Now, where are we here? So a little more brown in on this trunk here. And then it needs a shadow running off of it. I like that that tree is light back in there, and if we want it to stand out anymore, we can just darken around it a touch more. And there's a nice little bush there. Maybe that bush can go a little more green. Okay. Oh, and here's another one where the tree back there can be a little lighter than its background. So let's just darken the background a hair, make that tree stand out. Just little fuss bits here. And places where you want something to be a little stronger, straighter feeling, even though the background maybe didn't feel like it should have more added to it, I needed to add just a little more to make that trunk look straight, because if you see this uneven edge, like right here, it's going to read that way, and maybe you don't want it to read that way. You want it to read with a little more firmness. So let's just, and right here, this is another spot where I can make that a little bit darker, and then that tree is going to just stand out a little bit more. Okay. Yes, I think that now I need to do the hairdryer on this, and then we will pull the resist off and see where we're at on this. Okay. Time for the reveal. I will, of course, be coming back in and putting a little bit more paint on this because we don't want this pure white, but we wanted it light like this. And now we can see how dark or not dark our background ended up. And, you know, it might need a little more adjustment here and there. I have to be careful too. There was paint on the top of this, and if I rub it too much like I just did there, I'll end up with some streaks of color where I may not want it. I think that's going to be okay. That's sort of the shady side of that tree. All right. And then the figures next. I got all of that. I want to be sure that I got all of my masking fluid off of there. And I might have to readjust the figures a little bit. It's like they got a little rough around the edges, but we can do that. This is the part that I really wanted to see because it was a last minute decision to sort of put resist up in here, but it allows me to keep that beautiful skinny little branches from the aspen trees. I think they're aspen. You know, actually, they're probably not aspen, and the name is not coming into brain. It will, but I love, maybe they are aspen. But anyway, they have this beautiful white trunks with some dark marks across them, and I left a few spaces down in here, so some of those dark spaces would already be automatically on these trunks, and I like what's happened down there. So this was all done with the crochet hook, and it really gave it a different feel, didn't it? Pretty. Some places that I don't, oh yeah, that's going to be better. Just break up. The hard thing with brush marks is that sometimes it's hard not to have it just as a little round puddle like that. And then when it's a little round puddle, it doesn't look very natural. It's a little bit sloppy when I did the painting over here, and the blue got up and on that orange a bit more than I really wanted it to. So I'm just lifting a little bit of it. And up here, the orange got a little up into the blue sky more than I wanted it to. Okay, now, so this has got to go down into sort of a tan color, and as you may remember, brown is made by mixing two opposites. In this case, I want it to lean a little toward orange, so let's go ahead and just start with that quinacridone burnt orange, and then I'm going to add a little blue to it. And which of the blues do I want? We'll do a little ultramarine blue. Just be careful not to do too much, because that's going to tone it down. It's going to take that overly bright and turn it more into a tan. And now that feels like it still needs a little more yellow to it. So let's just add a little yellow in there, sort of a yellowy tan. Okay, let's try that in here. Don't want it too dark. But that didn't want to be absolutely white. So this is base color, and then we'll let that dry just a little bit, and I'll come in and I'll do a little bit darker on the away side. Now my figures, he's got a big lump on the top of his head, which is not what we want. Oh, that's better already. And then maybe just down a little bit, take a little off that lump on his shoulder. Okay, this guy's got running shoe weights or just lumps. And his friend looks like he's got a pin head, so let's just take a little off that top. And maybe there's a bit more space in here. And let's just take that, yeah, a little space between the legs up just a little higher so it doesn't look like he's wearing a skirt. All right, now up in here, just needed a tiny bit of tone down so that it wasn't quite so blaringly bright. And then maybe in this area here, there's some spaces that get hidden back in. And then we're going to get down into this lower part where some of this is in shadow. But then there's light that comes through here to create some of that light that happens there. And then we'll need a little bit of blue on this. Let's get a little more phthalo in that blue. So it's still a lot lighter than the background. Photograph sort of shows what do I want to say? My photograph sort of shows a little bit of shaft of light coming through here, and I'm liking that. So this branch, okay, can all go pale blue. This branch, and we can see we didn't like how that was, and that's better when that happens. looks lovely. That looks lovely. And then this area that has this shadowy, yeah, we'll take that one shadowy, okay. Let's just take this a little darker and take a few of these leaves across some of that. And then this has a shadow side to this, even though it's in the sunlight, it has a shadow side. Getting about to the point where I need to stop and look at this from a distance to see what's happening. Soften that a little bit, make that look round. Work on those a little so that the tops of those don't feel quite so fake like they were feeling. I'm going to stop at this point. We're now 80% done, 90% done. I love what's happened over here. Isn't that lovely? But my figures need to be finished. I need to decide how dark I'm going on this, what I'm doing on some of these back areas. This is all looking much nicer than it looked earlier. I'm liking it quite a bit. I do want to get just a wee touch more bright orange up in here.